People who started a new life elsewhere. Why did you do it? I was living with a very mean and controlling girlfriend. If it wasn't her way or all about her, she threw a fit. One day I had enough and said I was going to the store and just kept driving. I literally drove for 12 hours and showed up at a friend's house 5 states away and asked if I could crash on his couch. I called my boss and said I wanted to quit work. He was pretty cool about it. He knew my girlfriend and actually set me up with a job in my new city. I have never spoken to my ex since. Soon after my relocation, I met my, now, wife, and I could not be in a better relationship. Best thing I ever did. I left my home like this. One night, I just packed the essentials into my backpack, walked to a train station, and got on a train to Newport News, Virginia from Pasco, Washington. No one knew I was gone until 3 o'clock the next morning. It was to be with a girl my family was totally 100% against. That was a year ago. It's all working perfectly. I am happier now than I ever have been before. Sort of. My cousin went for a walk once. He was dating this woman who was just an awful human being. She got pregnant, swore it was his, and once the kid was born, the state went after him for child support, as he wasn't on the birth certificate, even though they were living together. Anyways, the paternity test came back showing it wasn't his, and she flipped her lid. Just lost it. He asked her to calm down and said he wanted to take a walk to cool off. He left everything he owned, minus the clothes on his back and his wallet, and went for a walk that he never came from. A few years back, the kid found him. He was 16 or 17 and went on some giant rant about him being a bum and a punk ass and whatever other nonsense. My cousin told him he wasn't his dad. The paternity test showed that, and he had no idea why she told him he was the father and abandoned them. Kid left a whole hell of a lot more confused than he showed up, I think. Edit calm, not qualm. Not really the same thing, and there's other drama involved, but to keep it short, went through a bad breakup. To get away from it, I went to Sri Lanka in 2004 during Christmas. The tsunami happened. Came back and told my family and about 2 friends I was leaving LA. Boarded a plane a few days later for New York with only 2 bags, no app, no job. Found a job and a flat within the first few weeks. I've been here 10 years now and have no regrets. Edit. She's married now and very happy. Took all of the plans we spoke about and applied them to her, then new dude and did them with him. They live in the same area and XYZ. I'm happy for her regardless. She was a great person. We were just young. My mother left me at her door. I would visit every Saturday for a few hours. Then she wasn't there. After 10+ years of extreme hate towards her, my uncle enlightened me. He said, maybe she left you for the better. Turns out she has extreme mental issues. Drug abuse. It's amazing how few words can change your life. I left my kids with my husband after quitting my job. He was sapping me of everything I could ever have emotionally and was neglectful to me as a wife. It was either leave or kill myself. I am now going through a divorce, and I am getting my life together. My kids and I have a better relationship than ever because I am emotionally fit to care for them. I am now the mother they deserve. I was 27 living with my very religious parents. I was miserable there, and my boyfriend of 1 year invited me to come live with him. I packed up my stuff one day, wrote a note, and left with him. My parents did not approve of intimate relationships outside of marriage. They would beat me up, and probably him too if we would have told them ahead of time. I don't regret it all, and it was the best decision I ever made. I kind of did this. Woke up knowing how much of a mistake going to art school in San Francisco was, called a friend who came to the city later that day, and helped me pack my shit and left. I moved in with a different friend, got a job the next day, and went from there. I told my roommate when they called a few days later. I was in school housing, so I didn't dick them over, and a friend from work the day I left when she called wanted to get some dinner. Never regretted it, because eventually it led to my spouse and kids. Edit, no guys, this is not from him. I'm realizing I should have sued the shit out of the writers for stealing my story, though. Woke up knowing how much of a mistake going to art school in San Francisco was. Good thing you figured that out before 6 figures of student loan debt. Well, this isn't me, but a friend of my dad's. Friend or drinking buddy. They're both pretty bad alcoholics. Anyways, we'll call him Derek. Derek and my dad met when I was around 10 to 12 years old. They became best friends / drinking buds. He would spend every day there. Derek was also Scottish and immigrated sometime around 2003, I think. Derek owned a local corner store, had to declare bankruptcy, moved to the city. Fast forward about 8 years, Derek is unhappy with his life and has gotten in touch with an ex-girlfriend in Scotland. Derek leaves his wife of 25-ish years, son and daughter, 3 grandchildren all behind. But didn't actually leave them formally. No, he went to work and just never came back. Sent an email a week later. I don't like Derek. A According to him, he's happier than ever. TLDR: Scottish drunkard goes to work, leaves family behind, is a dick. I was sort of the left behind. A friend left for smokes and never came back, leaving her 4-year-old with me. I wasn't ready to be a mom by any stretch of the imagination, but by the time we located the family and they said they didn't want the little guy, I couldn't imagine my life without him. It's been a struggle, but we are 10 years in and he has changed my life in unimaginable ways. Her loss is all I think when I see his smiling face every day. I don't know where she is. I never heard from her again other than when she dropped some of his clothes off through a mutual friend. I'm glad she had never come back because I don't know what I would do. I think it would break my heart if he wanted to be with her. I'm from New Zealand. Moved to Melbourne, Australia to be with a girl. She ended up being batshit crazy. I was basically a prisoner for 2 years. I managed to scrape together enough money for a ticket home. I told her I was just going home for a visit on my mom's birthday. Bought a return flight and left most of my stuff there. If I didn't do the sneaky, she would have hidden/destroyed my passport, ATM card, and shit like that. It was the best thing I have ever done. I was 21, on my 3rd year of college, getting drunk and high on pills every single night, puking every single morning, fucking guy after random guy. I just had an abortion, 98 pounds and barely scraping by in my classes. One day, I woke up and felt so unbelievably sick, tired of the way, and was living I considered ending my life. Instead of killing myself, I packed up as much as I could fit in my car while my housemates were in class/work and moved to North Carolina to live by the beach. I called my parents and told them what I was doing, which broke their hearts, which broke my heart. I still come home for some holidays. I stayed in a cheap, disgusting motel for 2 months before I saved enough of my waitress job to get an apartment 40 minutes from the beach. I'm currently married to a wonderful man, completely sober, finished my degree, and have a baby due in December. I can truly say I'm happy. I was about a month out of high school. I whinnied to the recruiting office and joined the Navy. I knew I wasn't college material, but still wanted to do something. So I didn't just leave in the night, but gave everyone a month's notice that I'm going to be gone for the next 6 years. GF broke up with me 3 months into my new career, but I managed to survive. After the first year, my relationship with my parents improved because I was doing something on my own and they were proud. I recently got out after my 6 years with a whirlwind of mental problems that crept up on me, and they have been there to help me out like no other. I was in a really bad relationship and more or less stuck there. I took my last $500 to a local casino and played poker nonstop for a month. I slept in my car and showered at the local YMCA. After a month, I was up $15,000. I drove to Vegas and played professionally for 3 years. By that time, I'd saved up about $300,000 and moved to NYC and started playing underground games there. One day, I was playing with a trader who heard my story and hired me on the spot. Been about 5 years working on Wall Street now. My ex contacted me a few times, but I ignored her. She's a waitress now. It's not quite the same, but I remember the last time I saw my dad. He had always let me down and lied to me, and eventually my mom and stepdad had enough. I stayed around my dad's every other weekend, so I had some stuff there. One day, my mom and stepdad went to my dad's and picked up all my stuff. My dad's GF would only let me through due to the aggressive history between my stepdad and my dad. My dad didn't even get out of bed, but was wide awake. I went upstairs and went past his bedroom. His door was ajar, and he just said, "Hi, DJ," my nickname. I grabbed my stuff and went downstairs. He didn't say a word, neither did I. Haven't spoke to him since, and that was 7 years ago. Excuse any errors. It's 4 a.m. Left my family after I turned 18. Unenrolled myself from school, got a plane ticket, and packed right in front of my mom and her husband without a question. We lived with other family, so having things in a suitcase wasn't too odd. I told one of my siblings, had a friend drive me to the airport when I left in the morning for school. They didn't know I was gone until I didn't come home from school. Flew 2,000 miles back to where I lived before to be with my girlfriend and finish school with my friends. Got out of an abusive house and out on my own. I would say it worked out as I have been with my girlfriend, now wife, for almost 8 years, and we are having our 3rd child this August. Life is better away from my family. Not first-hand experience, but this happened to my mom when she was like 14, 45 years ago. Her uncle went out for a pack of smokes when she was 14, and they never saw him again. It was like an urban legend in our family, until my grandfather, his brother, found him 40 years later. He's now living in the US, we're from Canada, and has had a completely new family. They didn't know about us, and we didn't know about them. Refuses to come back to Canada. We don't think he's allowed back, and doesn't want to talk about any of the circumstances on why he left. Uneasy face. We're still trying to adjust to it, but it's still really weird. This will probs get buried, but I'll say my piece anyway. My mom had been abused as a child, and my father was ex-military. They had been divorced since before I remember, and I never knew my actual father. The straw that broke the camel's back was when she had been pushing me to get a job, so I did at a local amusement park. The next day I had work, and she wouldn't let me get a ride or take the car, so I packed my toothbrush, deodorant, and walked out with the clothes I was wearing and the cash I had on me, about $40. I walked 16 miles to a friend's house through the night, stopping to catch a nap on the sidewalk. Stayed at his house the next night, and found a condo out of the city. I had to fake my ID, so the landlord thought I was 18 and promised him first month's rent as soon as I got a job. I wound up staying there for a couple months and sold drugs to get by. I've since repaired relations with her as well as met my real father, have a legitimate job, and about to rent an apartment. My dad went to pay the rent when I was 2 years old, and Mom was 7 months pregnant with my brother. Never heard from him again. Don't know where he went or what he did, but I've since found out he had another daughter that he abandoned before I was born, and a couple more after he left us. It affected Mom far more than she has ever let on, but as far as I'm concerned, it was his loss, not ours. 2 years ago, my girlfriend and I just packed up and moved 2 states over. We were having a pretty rough time living with my parents, so after a huge argument, we just loaded up our small car with anything that would fit and went camping for a month while I looked for a job and an apartment. So 2 years later, we'll be getting married soon, and I've just taken a new job with a 6-figure salary. That camping trip was probably the happiest I've ever been. Nowhere to go, no responsibilities. It was freedom. I was 14, and my dad was absent and had essentially left me with an increasingly abusive stepmother. One day, I walked out of the door on my way to school, and the realization hit me that I wasn't going to do this anymore. I went to the school counselor, told her what was going on in my life, and the police escorted me home to grab some things, and then onto a teen shelter. I was there for a while, then I stayed with my grandmother who was local, and then I moved to California to meet my mother who had split up with my dad when I was a baby. I lived with her and my newfound half-siblings for about a year, and then moved out on my own. It's been 14 years since I left home. I have a really gentle, patient husband who makes me laugh, and a toddler daughter. I also have 2 graduate degrees and a job I work really hard at and am proud of, where I help people every day. I had a BF break up with me this way. We had a small tiff one evening, our first and only tiff during our 2 years together. He spent the night that evening, which was typical for a Sunday night. He got up and left for his house in the morning before I woke up, and I haven't heard from him since. 2 weeks later, I declared us broken up and moved on. Did me a favor actually, as I was going to have the shit or get off the pot chat with him. At 2 years, our relationship felt like it had at 6 months. He was emotionally constipated, and I felt like an activity partner, not a girlfriend. Edit, a word. My mom fled her crazy Southern Baptist upbringing at 13 and ended up leaving Southern Kentucky for Cincinnati and managing the original country kitchen for her brother-in-law dad. Met my dad there, who was in the midst of a divorce. She went back some time later, but never repented of her distrust of the old-time religion. This wasn't much of a drop everything move, but when I had finished spending my time in Australia, DR, dad took a job, family hated it, moved back, I did this kind of move. I was in physics class, last class of the day. My friends asked me if I wanted to hang out after school, and I declined politely. I asked my teacher if I could grab my stuff from my locker, couldn't have bags with you in classes, and he said yes. So I did so, waited for the bell, and left. I didn't return until the Monday. After to return my books, my friends asked why I wasn't in school, and I told them I was going home, to Canada. Never talked to them ever since. Highly regret going there. Canada 9/10 Canada with rice 10/10 edit. Words. Please consider subscribing if you enjoyed. Love.